Welcome to Here We Are Now, a series that looks at what life experiences went into the creation of your favorite art and why we love it. Today we will be looking at the Beatles' 1967 classic, Penny Lane, and what moments, either traumatic or joyful, may have affected it. I'm Matt Collette, a creative who has spent decades working in mental health. Today's special guest is David Moorhead, a musician and educator from Massachusetts. Now let's discover the connection between Penny Lane and mental health. Hi everyone, welcome to Here We Are Now, music, movies, and mental health. As you know, I'm Matt Collette, but this week I am joined by David Moorhead from Randolph, Massachusetts. He's with us through a Zoom link, which hopefully is recording. I'll be contacting the good people at Zoom tomorrow because I upgraded to a pro account and it isn't recording. So thank you, David. By the way, he has a degree from Berklee College of Music, so this is probably going to sound amazing. The best Zoom audio of all time. It's going to have THX 5.1. What's the latest BS they're trying to sell us?
Dolby Atmos.
Oh yeah, you're gonna hear Mick Fleetwood's tambourine coming out of your bathroom. Anyway, David, what did you choose for today's topic?
So today I wanted to talk about Penny Lane by the Beatles on the Magical Mystery Tour album, first in the US, UK EP.
So guys, look, for those of you that know me, yeah, I'm into the Beatles. So I was like, oh, we're gonna do the Beatles this soon, but I've come around on it because we're coming at it from an emotional mental health angle. We're not going to be talking about catalog numbers and who plays drums on Old Brown Shoe, Ringo or Paul, and things like that. So you will see me visibly trying to contain myself with trivia that doesn't pertain to what we're doing today. I will try my best to not go overboard. But David, tell us about your life in Randolph and how long have we known each other?
So we've known each other since the end of 2003. And we have been doing some music stuff ever since. It's been really cool. I've been playing guitar nearly my entire life, writing songs, doing recording projects and what have you. Music it's in here, and it has been for a very long time, but it all started with the Beatles and continues with the Beatles. And there are many other bands and artists that I really enjoy. But that music has become part of my internal DNA, and it's huge for me. I know for Matt as well.
David also performs live up and down the Massachusetts coast. You had a show last night, right?
Yeah, played last night at a little venue in Brookline, the Village Social Club. It's a nice little place. They've got a restaurant upstairs. I played in the downstairs bar area. Really nice. Played for a couple hours. Played a bunch of songs. Songs that I've written with you. Beatles songs. It's great. Fantastic night out. Everyone over there is very, very nice. And I highly suggest visiting that place if you ever come out.
Yeah, Brookline. So David and I have done music, and we're actually recording right now what looks to be an album. He came out last fall, August, and I recorded some drums at Big Ego Studio, and now we're adding more stuff and this and that, and soon dozens of you will be enjoying that music when it's released sometime this year,
hopefully.
Maybe
yes.
Would be nice.
Yes.
All right, so yeah, we're doing Penny Lane. So right now I'm going to pretend that we've already made the film and that we're going to come back and like, oh, that was a great film. But I haven't made it yet. You see, folks, because I don't know what we're really going to talk about. So that's what's happening. Anyway, here's the video. We all know that after a few short years of being those lovable mop tops, the Beatles transformed, and the world had to catch up. So it's interesting that the music which started this revolution is based on their childhood.
Penny Lane is a place in Liverpool that was kind of central when I was growing up, because it is a bus depot. We used to call it a bus depot. So if you take one route of bus and you've got to change routes and go off this way, it's Penny Lane that you change at, you know. When John and I were writing songs later, we often used to just hark back to places that we both remembered, you know. They're just memories, really, you know, pulled together and given a kind of slightly poetic treatment. And it's really just memories of my Liverpool childhood.
But why this nostalgia, this looking back as they charged a way forward?
Now, this religious controversy, I know you don't want to say too much about it, but does it worry you that it's going to boil up when you get to the States?
Well, it worries me, yes, but I hope everything will be all right in the end of the day.
If you, as an American teenager, are offended by statements from a group of foreign singers which strike at the very basis of our existence as God-fearing, patriotic citizens, then we urge you to take your Beatle records, pictures, and souvenirs to the pickup points about to be named. And on the night of the Beatles' appearance in Memphis, August 19th, they will be destroyed in a huge public bonfire at a place to be named soon. Stay tuned to Wacky for further development.
Beatles made a statement in all the newspapers that they're getting more better than Jesus himself, and the Ku Klux Klan, being a religious order, is going to come out here the night that they appear at the Coliseum here. And we're going to demonstrate with different ways and tactics to stop this performance. The Klan is going to come out here because we're the only organization that will come out and make a stop to these accusations. This is nothing but blasphemy, and we're going to try to stop it any terror way we can, but it's going to stop.
No, I'm not saying that we're better or greater or comparing us with Jesus Christ as a person or God as a thing or whatever it is. You know, I just said what I said and it was wrong or was taken wrong, and now it's all this.
Did you mean that the Beatles are more popular than Christ? When I was talking about it, it was very close and intimate with this person that I know who happens to be a reporter. I was using expressions on things that I just read and derived about Christianity, only I was saying it in the simplest form that I know, which is the natural way I talk.
What's the most enjoyable thing to you four about this adulation, this almost godhood on earth that you've achieved?
Don't say that. It was him. He said it. You all saw that.
And all those things that happened, like people threatening Ringo or threatening us, or saying
Snipping bits of hair off and stuff.
The plane was going to crash, hurricanes hitting, race riots, student
Wings on
riots.
fire.
There was always something that we pulled into town. There was always some big thing going on, and we'd come in the middle with this mania, and it'd just be like chaos.
We're known as a terror organization. I think we have
a terror organization.
We have ways and means to stop this if this is going to be the case. Yes.
What ways and means?
Well, I don't want to say this, but there'll be a lot of surprises Monday night, I believe, when they get here.
So, as many of us do when things get stressful, we lean into nostalgia and think about, I remember my hometown or my first house that I lived in. Even though they were still very young men, they must have looked back at those early days in Liverpool as just simple. Nobody is studying your every move and misinterpreting what you might want to say. The freedom of anonymity was no longer in their grasp, and never would be again. For 60 years now, they have been John, Paul, George, and Ringo. Back in Liverpool, they were just four lads taking the bus. Nobody knew or cared who they were. But certainly they wanted people to know who they were, and maybe to put out a single, which I'm sure felt like a million miles away. 1967 is only 10 short years after Paul McCartney met John Lennon, and by now they were already fed up with the trappings of fame.
People were sort of touching us as we walked past, that kind of thing, and wherever we went we were supposed to be not sort of like normal, whatever. We were supposed to put up with all sorts of shit from Lord Mayors and their wives and be touched and poured. Because we were famous, we were supposed to have people, sort of epileptics and, whatever they are, in our dressing room all the time, It's always their mother or their nurse pushing them on you. They push them at you like you're Christ or something, or as if there's some aura about you which will rub off on them, and it just got to be like that. We got very sort of callous about it, surrounded by cripples and blind people all the time, and when we'd go through corridors, they'd be all touching us, it got like that, it got horrifying. One has to completely humiliate oneself to be what the Beatles were. It just happened bit by bit, and you gradually, till this complete craziness is surrounding you, and you're doing exactly what you don't want to do with people you can't stand, the people that you hated when you were 10.
John's mother died when he was only 17, and right after he had reacquainted himself with her. Paul's mom died when he was 14 years old, and since Liverpool wasn't really a place where you would talk about grief or your feelings, it went into their music. Whether it was conscious or subconscious, John Lennon has repeatedly revisited his mother and his Liverpool upbringing, and Paul McCartney has done it as recently as his last few albums. Let's find out why. All right, so Penny Lane. Here's the single. It's a double A side with Strawberry Fields Forever. And this is my mom's copy, 1967, of Magical Mystery Tour, which comes with a big old book, and highly recommend it. Magical Mystery Tour as a movie, can't recommend it. Depends what your hallucinogenic intake is, or if you like David Lynch movies or whatever. I know Spielberg loves it.
Right.
And for reference, I have the Paul McCartney lyrics book, which is very heavy. All right, look. Penny Lane came out, and it was really the first time that people saw the Beatles with facial hair, and they didn't have Beatle haircuts, and they weren't wearing suits and all of that. So for me, that's the marker. Like, oh, they're not touring and they don't look like Beatles, which, John went off and made a movie called How I Won the War, in which he dies. And that's when he started wearing his national health granny glasses, which became his thing. The truth is, everybody, he had to wear glasses the whole time, and he had to cover that up, and the fact that he was married, and anyway. So Penny Lane is, as you saw, a real place. I've been there, and I just find it super interesting. And I think my main thing today is going to be how the Beatles, who were in that short amount of time that they were together, which is really 7 years of super fame and putting out records, and they keep reinventing themselves and taking huge artistic risks or political risks or whatever, man. But while they're doing that, and they're the biggest thing ever, they're very nostalgic, super nostalgic about their childhood and about Liverpool, which they weren't going back to. They left Liverpool in 63. The last time they played Cavern Club was, I think, in early, like 63.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe late 62, early 63, yeah. And that was it.
But it's interesting. Regarding Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields Forever, how these guys are in their mid-20s, right? And they're already thinking back, oh, I remember like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, what I was doing, and that was cool. So Penny Lane is a real spot. You can go there. The only thing left is the barbershop, and it's a different owner and all of that. But hey man, why did you choose Penny Lane, and why do you think Paul McCartney chose to put this out as his first mustache song, the first song that the Beatles put out sporting facial hair?
I'll go with the second question first. 1966 is when they start working on this song. They're finished touring, and they're looking to get even more creative than they'd already been. It's post-war Britain, but in that time that they knew each other for about a decade at this point, they are feeling, yes, nostalgic, but it always comes back to the music and this really deep connection with home. And there's a whole thing here with Penny Lane and the bus, and this is where McCartney comes in and says, "Oh, I used to take the bus there and transfer to go visit with John." So it becomes a song about childhood. It's, as I mentioned to Matt in our pre-show conversation, we're listening to a picture. This is something that McCartney is bringing to the table in swinging London at this point. We're coming into 67. Everything is now in Technicolor. Even the Revolver album cover is in black and white in 1966. And then as you switch over into everything new that is transpiring late 66 into 67, this whole world of color explodes. And the video for Strawberry Fields Forever and Penny Lane, they are, yes, psychedelic, we can call them that, but just beautiful. I love the way they look. You can find the remastered versions of these on the One Plus set from 2015. So we are hearing all of these places that are in this Penny Lane area. The very first lyric out of the gate, what was I reading about this? It's there's a barber showing photographs and what have you. I mean, immediately out of that lyric, we're hearing about pictures, and it's almost getting meta. It's very, very interesting, very cool. So again, as an adult, I'm able to really, and as a songwriter, I'm able to really connect with these ideas and wanting to speak in terms of the picture. I want you to have this whole expression that is always in my mind: show me, don't tell me. He's showing, and I love that about the lyric. And it's not stuff that I'm thinking about as a young person when I'm hearing this for the first time at 4. I just found everything about this song absolutely fascinating. When I first had the cassette, I never had the album at the house. We had the earlier albums, the American albums, but I had this on cassette. And after having seen the Complete Beatles, they show the videos in the Complete Beatles. And it looks like Matt, yes, has the VHS. I loved and watched that thing many, many times.
It's dog-eared. Malcolm McDowell, highly recommended.
If you can find it. Paul McCartney bought it because he wanted to do the anthology project. He didn't want that being the anthology project. But no, it's painting this picture with these words, and it's cool. But again, it goes back to these things that as I get older, I find important about my experience as a young person and a child. To be important, my love of music and my love of my memories that I had as a kid, which made me feel very good in the most pure sense. We're not talking about anything remarkably deep, just like pure, unadulterated emotion of happiness in this song. I mean, it really gets tipped over into a whole other place with the trumpet solo in the middle. It's fascinating. I've always found the song fascinating, and as an adult, and we can talk about this later, from a songwriting angle, it's a very interesting song, musically speaking. But again, the words, these lyrics are they're very cool. And McCartney gets hammered quite a bit for his lazy songwriting with the lyrical side of things. I won't ever say that about the music that he creates, but the lyrics will often, because I think he's just working so fast, doesn't want to go back and self-edit, which is fair. That's fine. Not these lyrics. There's something going on here that's really beautiful, and it has a connection to home. And even at that time, we're talking about 1966, his connection with John Lennon. These guys were not just friends; they really were brothers in the most true sense of that. And they had this relationship that, again, you can hear on that single, the Strawberry Fields Forever single with Penny Lane, the double A side. There is a real and true connection there of home and a connection to their youth when they were, again, kids. But this is childhood described with adult language, but still things that you can understand in a really, really beautiful and colorful way. Again, this is Technicolor. This is heavy color. We have arrived.
All right, so Paul McCartney in '66 did an interview where he was talking about Eric Burdon and the Animals, and they had put out a B-side about Eric Burdon's upbringing in Newcastle, which is another blue-collar city in England. So blue-collar, I think Brian Johnson is from there, from AC/DC. But he was attracted to how it mentions these places where they grew up and this and that. And I think there was originally a mention of Penny Lane in the lyrics to "In My Life" or something like that, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So again, it goes back to that nostalgia. So now I'm going to, as a non-credentialed, not degreed person who is not a therapist, but has spent 20 years doing what I do, which I won't go into now. Let's take a look at this. What did John and Paul have in common? Okay, they were both born during World War II. Places getting literally bombed. Okay. John's mother and father were challenged, right? John ends up with his Aunt Mimi. Aunt Mimi and his mom are having issues. His mom remarries and has two other children. John and Paul, when he's 14 years old, his mother, who was a nurse, and her name is Mary, Mother Mary comes to me, she passes away of cancer. John is 2 years older than Paul. So when he's 16, which would have been around the same time, his mother, who he had just reconnected with, also passed away because she was hit and killed by an off-duty police officer who was intoxicated, which I'll go into in another John Lennon episode about how I think that fed into his anti-authority stance that he's always had and was, I think, solidified at that point. So nostalgia, man, when you have that trauma, and that is trauma,
big time,
losing your mom and you're still a teenage boy, and my God, it's the worst. So I think that's what they're going back to, and it's what gave them the extra push to like, no, we're going to write songs together and we're going to do this. Oh, you're going to sign us to EMI, but you want us to do Why Do You Do It, which is what George Martin, why do you do, they did it, but like, we really want to do our own songs. Now that comes from a place of passion and need and purpose and real artistic intent. Like, you grew up with not much money in Liverpool, and now you're in London, and this big record company is like, yeah, we're gonna do these songs, and you're at 20, 21, and you go, no, we're doing our songs. And then you do, and it's successful, very successful, and then it goes on, and as you're changing, you're still going back. So I thought it'd be interesting to kind of go through the lyrics a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
But I have this book. You've mentioned the barber. Now, the first thing that I've noticed here, Paul McCartney, who, I know his work fairly well, won't go into it. You can see a lot of, I don't want to say depressive, but emotional, sometimes blue, dark lyrics in his music. And it'll sneak up on you because it sounds cheerful sometimes.
I was gonna say he tends to paint a very positive picture all the time, and he always kind of comes back around. Oh, it's gonna be okay. We're gonna be good. But yes, those lyrics do sneak up on you.
And by the way, look at his artwork. Sometime it's dark, like it is impressionistic, and check it out. Anyway, he says, and the banker never wears a mac, and the pouring rain, very strange, but you're in Penny Lane, and it's in your ears and in your eyes, and you're beneath blue suburban skies. So it's raining, but it's sunny. Now, to me, and with anybody's life, right now, everybody's stressed out.
Yeah.
And I live in California. It is beautiful outside most of the time. But I got to wear my Mac because it's pouring rain because of what we're carrying around with us. So, to me, that could be the nostalgia, where you're looking back on these sunny skies and what have you, but you are doing it infused with the pain and the trauma of the loss of your mother. Or once you get famous and everybody is kind of coming at you, and who do you trust? Which by this point, they had already stopped touring because they thought they were going to get murdered, guys. Okay? And John Lennon was the 1966 version of being canceled. Just luckily there was no social media, because he said something about our friend Jesus that was taken out of context. Okay? So they were in trouble. So I think let's go back and look at where we came from, but mix it up with our contemporary drug-addled experiences of being the kings of the world, So, and I think we can all, identify with being at a beautiful place, but your mind is still thinking about something bad, Look at a bunch of adults that hang out at Disneyland. They're there for a reason, and there's a chance that they're going there for those sunny skies or whatever.
Sure.
But they're definitely still thinking about how I don't like my job or whatever. Someday David will tell you his churro story at Disneyland. Not today. All right. In Penny Lane, there is a fireman with an hourglass, and in his pocket is a portrait of the Queen. He likes to keep his fire engine clean. It's a clean machine. All right, let's do it. Is this guy masturbating to a picture of the Queen?
Perhaps, which would mean that that's not the only filthy lyric in this song, but and it's okay. What you have here again is some masterful wordplay going on, and again, much like you'd have in something like Day Tripper, where they're getting into more adult subject matter, but still selling these songs to 14-year-old boys and girls without being very obvious about what they're trying to get across. It's quite thoughtful. Perhaps yes, filthy, but yes, it is. It's a good way to go about hiding the message while painting the picture of this fireman.
See, to me, that sounds like John. That sounds like John's wordplay, because
Yep.
he would definitely write a song
Oh,
about
he would,
masturbating
yes,
to the Queen.
for
Where
sure.
Paul, I feel, has always been more of a monarchist, you know, and John actually returned his MBE,
Yep.
where Paul went on to be a knight, you know. But
I feel
anyway,
that I think John would have been perhaps a little bit more obvious about dropping that though, and that's where the relationship. That's perhaps a very good example where the relationship kind of comes to play. Then, you know, the two of them looking at one another, maybe going over lyrics and talking about how to present. So perhaps this can get on radio, even though, hey, clean machine.
and the pretty nurse selling puppies from a tray. Is that his mom? Paul McCartney's mom was a nurse.
Yes.
You know, and though she feels she's in a play, she is anyway. Now that's maybe a Shakespearean thing, or maybe it's acid. But you know, a lot of, I just love the lyrics on this. It's got that Lewis Carroll thing that usually John Lennon has, but here Paul shows you that he can do it.
But oddly enough, though, going back to that conversation we were talking about earlier with them and the nostalgia bit and them losing their mothers, perhaps, yes, he's talking about his mother. And as we discussed, John's mother worked in this area.
Yeah, Julia worked in the movie theater as an usher, and that's where John's father, Alfred, I believe, first came across her. And Penny Lane was very close to their homes. I've seen both of their homes when I did the Magical Mystery Tour that I took in Liverpool.
Yep.
John definitely had more money than Paul or Aunt Mimi did. When you see the houses. All right, so now everybody's getting shaves from the barber. The banker is sitting waiting for a trim. And then the fireman rushes in from the pouring rain, very strange. And then the next line, all of a sudden, it's blue suburban skies again. So again, you have the rain, the depression, and the suburban skies, and they're blue, which would be, you know, happiness and everything's good. And I still think this is a defining trait of Paul McCartney, not just as an artist, but as a person. I see his pain and I feel his pain. And guys, keep in mind, like, he is a billionaire. He's super famous. The guy lost his mom, and then he lost his manager, and who died in '67, Brian Epstein. And then, my God, his best friend and musical partner and brother is murdered. That would give me anxiety, you know. And then, oh yeah, your wife of 30 years, she's same cancer that your mother had. So you're going to come out of that with some pain, and luckily, Paul McCartney's therapy is our, you know, library of cool music and art to enjoy, which is, for me, at its highest when it comes to the Beatles, you know, and because John is much more literally naked when it comes to his feelings and his trauma than Paul, but I see it just as much with Paul. So again, I don't know, pouring rain, but it's a sunny sky.
Yeah. Again, as you start to examine his lyrics, a lot of the same themes come up. We haven't talked much about transportation stuff like A Day in the Life. His bit, woke up, got out of bed, that kind of bit. Two of Us, driving nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
On my way to work. That's some years later, but still.
On my way to work.
Thinking about transportation, being on the move, interesting. But the weather thing, interesting as well. Good Day Sunshine.
No more rain.
No more rain. So there's a lot of weather imagery that comes up. It is fascinating, and again, I don't think he's looking to go remarkably different with the directions with these different analogies and pictures that he's trying to paint. I think he just likes them and uses them, and it has become a theme for him in his lyric writing over the years, which again makes it remarkably interesting. I think a lot of lyricists get into this kind of thing. I talk to guitar players about this type of bit all the time, where they might be responsible for playing a lot of the same licks over songs and what have you, and it's not a bad thing. I can close my eyes right now, and if you put if you didn't tell me who the artist was and you put on a BB King record, I know instantaneously it was him. That's okay. We have these go-tos that maybe in other areas of life we'd say, oh, that's a crutch. I don't find that to be a crutch. I think it's things that we are drawn to and like, and we do well. He seems to like this type of imagery. Again, transportation and the rain bit. We know what this means. The pouring rain, very strange. All right. We deal with things like that all the time. It's very real. Rain is often, spoken about as, we're feeling, very kind of torn up and sad inside perhaps, but he's trying to put the salve on that with this lyric and say, oh, we're okay. Penny Lane's in my ears and eyes. They're beneath the blue suburban skies. It's gonna be okay. And again, this is
gonna
a guy,
be all right,
Right. This is a guy that lost his mother at 14. I'll take his word for it. I never had that experience. Thank God. I mean, that's heavy, man. But he's able to help us through that, and this to me is probably the same reason that Matt got into doing music as well. We've had things hit us in such a way at that age, and we wanted to find some kind of, I don't want to call it an out, but it's certainly just a way to deal with things in our own way. I know for myself, it was just a matter of picking up a guitar and just wanting to play these songs, but just to be able to play to make things feel better, which again is another image that Paul McCartney puts into his songs as well, about the guitar underneath the stairs, that kind of thing. And it's, yes, to me, very interesting because I love the guy, but I understand, because again, we've been through these things. These are not uncommon issues for the most part. I mean, yes, the mother thing, put that aside, but the general message is, yeah, we can be maybe of unsound mind at times, but it's going to get okay. Like we're going to get there.
So, one of the main reasons I'm doing this show is these things, and Paul McCartney now is just the Pope or whatever, and is getting away, and as they teach college classes on the Beatles, and I can see what I'm sure like people that were into certain classical music or jazz of the early 20th century, as it becomes kind of staid and mainstream. Not that the Beatles weren't mainstream, but you know what I mean. You lose the humanity because the Beatles have become bed sheets and coffee cups and Las Vegas reviews. But at the end of the day, these were pieces of art just invented by human beings who were incredibly human. So human that 60 years later, they're the biggest band going still.
Yeah.
And I think because people can feel the sincerity and the passion, and just that they had to get this out, and the fact that as they were just taking over the world and had anything that they wanted, no, we want to write about Penny Lane and strawberry fields. That really means something. And look, their life was so crazy at that time. I'm sure they didn't have time to think about why they wanted to do this, but then we get to do it. And the fact that we're doing this so many years later just shows how important it is to be honest with what you do artistically.
Big time.
And I think the Beatles were. Now it gets silly a little bit when you go into the solo years and the decades go by. I'm looking at you, Ringo. But the Beatles are just, to me, they're the Bible, you know.
There's honesty in presentation, which I think that means everything. At that point, when you're trying to put out pop music and compete with June Moon lyrics all over the charts everywhere else, there's honesty here with this. And sure, a lot of their early material tends to get written off by a lot of people. I want to hold your hand. She loves you. From me to you. I mean, sure, but I defy anyone to tell me that they haven't had those same thoughts and feelings about the people that they are with or were with at a younger age. There's honesty in that. And yes, you know, there were jokes between them. We need to ride a pool. We need to ride a car. Fair enough. It's their job. They're writing music, yes, because they want to make sure they can put food on the table, of course, and have a roof over their heads. But there's honesty in presentation, and there's honesty in their art, and it is genuine. And you know, this music, there was commentary from Leonard Bernstein at the time. We're not talking after, they're finished. That was the pat. At the time, this music was being recognized as pure, and this is talented information being presented to you. You should check this out. This isn't silly. I like that very, very much about this. And it has certainly come to us in that way. We're not first generation fans. You know, I got into this band in the early 1980s, and you know, that music made its way into my ears when I didn't know anything. It just, again, I heard the first chord of A Hard Day's Night. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know what it was. It was just cool. And as you start to hear the energy and the lyrics and the love and everything else that they end up getting into, kind of with the band post-mortem, like, oh, that was the past, but, you know, peace, love, understanding kind of stuff. It's real. Honesty in presentation. It's cool.
No, absolutely. And has not been replicated. And I don't know if it can be. But again, this was a number 2 single in England, right? It went to number 1.
What's the guy's name?
Tom Jones?
No.
Was it?
Oh man,
what went to number? Wasn't it Tom Jones?
It wasn't Tom Jones. It was who's the other guy? It was a song? Please Release Me.
Please, Engelbert Humperdinck.
There you go.
Humperdinck. Engelbert, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Let's see, folks. It says here. Yep. I think so. Yeah, sorry, Beatles. But we're not talking about Please Release Me today. You know, we're talking about this, which was written by 2 guys that were in their mid-20s that had the world at their feet, that missed their moms and missed the idea of catching a bus and going through town and the simplicity of that. And I will say, I love when you see photos of Paul McCartney just randomly on a bus. It makes me nervous because I don't want, but man, I just think you're right. He's into movement. and going forward. But he's always got a little bit of those rain clouds. He has a song called Rain Clouds, by the way.
Yeah.
Speaking of, but
Speaking of
anyway,
weather. Yeah.
this is real stuff, guys. Like, so it's so hard, I think, for people to sit down and do a deep listen where you just put on the headphones and you got the record or whatever. You can do it on Spotify and you're looking at the lyrics and you're really invested in it, and things are hitting you. Even if you can't hear all the lyrics or you don't speak the language, you can tell. It's why people listen to Italian operas, because you can tell, you know. So that's Penny Lane.
But on that note, real quick though, I from a musician angle, the music
here it comes, folks.
This is fascinating to me as I grew up to understand music. Just the energy within the song is pretty fascinating. But if you do a quick look at the score on this thing, because they've got a book out, the Beatles Complete Scores, which is really fantastic. It was done by a group of Japanese musicians back in the late 1990s, and I would say that it's about 85% accurate, maybe a little bit less so with the lyric translations, but who cares? If you look at that, the song is in key of B. The chorus goes up a minor seventh to the key of A. No one does that. This is a Paul McCartney thing. The guy is a remarkably talented musician. For me personally, the most talented musician in the group. Just someone that can play anything thrown at him. But as far as the ability to put a song together with that type of complexity and let it fly as a pop song without it sounding overly complex is fascinating. And it goes back to even his earliest days. If you listen to something like All My Loving, where the first two chords in All My Loving?
I can't think of the chords. You put me
F
on.
sharp minor to B. If you ever talk to jazz musicians, which I don't claim to be on any level, not on any level. I'm not a pure through and through jazz guy. We call it a 2-5. We've got the 2 chord of the key and then a 5. Who does that? That's a pop song. It's a huge pop song. He's still playing that in shows these days. It's fascinating. Paul McCartney puts that in because of his background. Again, going back to the things that he heard his dad play as a young kid. There is a certain thing with him and all of these guys about their childhood experience with music and letting that flow through their own music as adults. And it's why we're talking about Penny. It's the same for us. Why we're talking about Penny Lane today as guys our age. This is stuff that I heard at a very young age. You did as well. But the song here, it's fascinating. Just again, from a music angle, the energy is great. The bizarre movement from the verse to the chorus, and then on top of that, Paul McCartney doubles down. He goes up a whole step for the final.
Yeah, it keeps modulating.
It keeps modulating. He goes up a whole step at the end of the song, which again, you'll end up seeing something like that. If you're doing key changes in the middle of a song, generally you're going up just a little bit like that. I mean, if you want to think of, when I was first looking at this, it's, key of B and A are a whole step apart. So usually it's like thinking about it as going like a whole step down. People don't do that. Not to give you the type of energy that is in this song.
Now, as a Berkeley graduate, David, can you tell us why you don't see modulation as much in modern pop music on the recording end? Why would that be?
Well, I think what's happening here is that we're seeing a lot of assembly line music in play, and I think it's, I don't know, there's just too much complication that's being felt by the songwriters. They're like, I don't want to bother with it. And again, it's not to say that modern songs are bad. I don't buy that. That's not a thing.
There's some great music right now.
I don't listen to pop that's on the radio, but I will not go so far as to say it's garbage, because there is not that conversation to me isn't truthful. But I think that for me personally, I do have a problem if you look at the songwriting credits on a like a Beyonce record. There's like 70 people writing
the
those
cast
songs.
of Exodus.
Yeah, there's a lot of people writing those songs. This song here that we're talking about, the credit, the official credit, if you go and look that up, it's a Lennon-McCartney tune. It's mostly a Paul song. These two guys wrote this thing, mostly Paul.
Mm-hmm.
So from that angle, I like the fact that two people can sit down and come up with an idea like this, from shared experience, from where they grew up, from how they lived, how they are living.
In this case, a truly shared experience, because they were both at that bus stop and on that bus and at that barbershop. It'd be like, you writing a song about Randolph, or me writing a song about going to A&D Pizza in Millbury, Massachusetts, and then going to the the Elm Drought House Cinema. Nobody would know. But then it becomes a theme park.
Sure.
Penny Lane is a real place. They had to take down the sign because people kept stealing it. So they painted on the buildings. But guys, it's just, again, this kind of Beatles song, just that effortless melody. Dave knows that I'm always trying to do that stuff. I sent him piano stuff, and I definitely have a style that I like, and I can see it comes from that. And as far as talking about the light and the dark in your lyrics and in the music, because going to F sharp minor to B, that's going from sad to happy. So if this was an instrumental, to me, I would hear it. And that's why I love film scores and classical music, which is thanks to him too, because the guy did symphonies and an oratorio. So anyway, highly recommend listening to this with a decent pair of headphones and a good mix, and just allowing it to take you over. Put your phone down for 3 minutes, and let it go. I'll let you borrow my copy. Come on over, anybody. All right,
or just watch the videos too. They did a remaster on these things, and they're gorgeous. I think, to me, that is the highlight of that box set that came out in 2015. And it's it's fun to see them walking around doing their thing, but the music sounds fantastic, and
it's great.
Yeah,
it's great, guys. Like, look, I love the Beatles. There are songs of theirs that I've never completely fallen in love with, but this is one of them. Immediately, I was like, this is grade A, fantastic music. Not rock music, not pop music, which is, anyway. So why do you think, this is going to be hard with the Beatles, this song is still so popular? And why do you think 12-year-old kids hear this and it grabs them?
This, to me, is it's similar to the conversation that I have with people, say, about The Simpsons, where that show hits you as a kid because they don't talk down to you, but there are jokes within that show as a kid that you will get, and some you won't, but the adult absolutely will get and understand and appreciate from that angle, because again, they're not talking down to you. It's complex from that angle, and I enjoy that very much. And I never felt spoken down to in any of these types of songs coming out of that camp. But I think it does flow in that same general fashion where it is accessible by people for people of all ages, and that's hard to do.
No, absolutely. I used to go to some pretty hardcore places. Dave has been nice enough to come with me to a few spots, but I just came here from a funeral service of somebody who worked at one of these residentials, and so it's on my mind. And I would bring this, which no longer works, but is a portable record player, and I would bring things because these are kids that wouldn't listen to records. They don't have. And by the way, I'm bringing in contraband, by bringing in records, so I had to be careful. And I did bring this in once, and I brought in the single once I had it. And I do that so that the kids know that I'm trusting them enough. These are kids that have been beyond traumatized. The worst thing that the universe can do to you has happened. Now go live your life. What do you do? So for me, a great way to figure out how to exist after that, find stuff that will really speak to you, that's honest and doesn't speak down to you and isn't just trying to be a hit from other people. John Lennon could have easily become somebody in a psychiatric hospital, with what he had been through, but he found an outlet. So this record that I listened to in my uncle's bedroom over and over and over again was played by these adolescents in a really nightmarish environment. But you put this in, and that goes away. It dissipates for a second. I live next to some train tracks, everybody. So just one after 909. This is what it does. So they're transported to Penny Lane, but it's sunny, but it's raining. It's raining, but it's sunny. And they are in a place that smells bad and looks bad. And what do I hope for? How do I have any positivity? Well, you can be both. You can be sad, but also happy. You can be hopeful while being pessimistic. That's the human experience. That is the human condition. That's what we're all going through. We might try to front a certain way. That's Paul. Or we might really be dramatic and just want to put everything. That's John. He's going to tell you what he's thinking. He might change what he thinks a few minutes later, but he's going to tell you in that moment, So this actual record went into that place, and it was played by some people that are no longer alive. And that's why I like records and physical representations of music, because this is the only record that is this record, if that makes any sense. It's mine. It sounds like Full Metal Jacket. This is my rifle. And the Beatles is one of the few things that I know always works. And it doesn't, the race, the gender, the age, the environment has never mattered. It's just always worked. I think it's because of that light and dark thing that you find in a lot of their music, and the best art in the world has that. It has the minor and the major. It has so I gravitate towards that, So I think that's why it's gone on to work. And the Beatles, you get to choose your lovable mop tops or your psychedelic dandies or your heroin experimenting hippies, and it's all great, anyway, anything else on Penny Lane before I go into this week's audience question?
I don't know. Again, I can't stress enough how much joy this particular song has brought to me in my life. Again, as a kid and today, like this ends up becoming. I'm driving around and I need a little pick me up. That's my caffeine for sure. I mean, it's
what is it? Endorphins that we get.
Yeah.
So when my stupid phone, they make these things so beep 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 beep, and that goes into what's happening? I'm telling you that if you don't play an instrument or sing a song like Penny Lane, it's doing the verses, but it goes into that chorus, and you're just lift off. It's lift off, and it's an amazing feeling. It doesn't matter if you play it well. Doesn't matter if you can sing. It just feels great because he knows how to put that emotion into that song. He was a master at 25. He was 25 years old. 24.
24. He wasn't 25
He was 24.
yet. He was 24 because that's end of 66. Yep.
And when I hit,
do you remember 24? I wasn't writing Penny Lane.
24. Let's see. I wasn't writing Penny Lane. I wrote Walls and Bridges. But anyway, I just highly recommend just learning the melody of this song, or just on any instrument. It doesn't matter, and you'll feel better.
It's very singable, and I think that is also another reason why this thing resonates with young people, and probably from that little thing at the end. Like, again, it knowing nothing about music as a young kid, still knowing that that's interesting,
and it's not boring.
No,
it's doing different things. It has different acts in it, and like I said, those different shades that they do so well, Okay.
And one last note, real quick, as we were talking about transportation, where do they find themselves in the silly movie? On a bus.
He's referring to Magical Mystery Tour, and they are on a bus. And is it a movie? Well, the music is great. Like I said, I love the Beatles, but I can look at the film of Magical Mystery Tour and go, oh, all right, that was a little speed bump. But I still like it. I have it on DVD. I don't watch it. Okay, let's look at the question this week. It comes from Alan in California. And I will put this question to you, David. The question is, do you think there is a correlation between mental illness and creativity?
Oh, absolutely. For myself, I got into music at a very young age. From listening, but I started to play guitar when I was 6. I didn't have any thought about any kind of mental health or anything. You don't at that age, it was put off to me. I remember the car ride. I will never forget this. Mom's driving. Would you like to play soccer this spring, or do you want to start guitar? Santa brought a guitar for me that previous Christmas. I'll play guitar. And that was it. No looking back at that point. But as you start to investigate your space mentally, and you're thinking about life as a maybe preteen, probably for me as a preteen, I guess around 10, 11, 12, I'm starting to investigate, what it is maybe that's hitting me. And even, prior to that, I remember writing my first song. I was, 8 years old. Love makes the world go round. And you're thinking about these things, and the song is terrible, but it doesn't matter because you're you're influenced by these emotions that you're having that you don't know how to deal with. That's certainly a happy thing. But my response to the sadness inside of me also came via the guitar as well, in playing music and trying to deal with things in a way that I knew would make me feel better. And having access to music around me was huge. And having the guitar now, these are pre-streaming days. We don't have access to everything on the planet. When I'm getting into music at that age, so you had to kind of fake it till you make it kind of conversation, where you have to learn how to play these songs that you're liking. So that was certainly a driving factor for me. I'm hearing these songs sitting on the side of my bed, listening to the record or listening to a cassette. Oh, what is this? I need to figure this out. I need this because I need it. It's not a matter of me wanting to do it to get on television shows or to be famous or to make loads of money. That's not the conversation. For me, it was in an effort to deal with some kind of sadness. My dad wasn't around as much as a young person, off working, sometimes on the other side of the country. And that to me was, it was a bummer. I didn't enjoy him not being with us as a family. So I ended up finding my solace in music, and that to me was remarkably helpful. And I will never forget those moments for myself in having access to music, just being able to play. And this is why I think it is so important for young people to get into playing music, because at that point, you're dealing with a lot of emotion and just a lot of things going on in society right now. I mean, it's very heavy. You can help yourself deal with it, and it's not to take you out of the reality of the moment. It's just to kind of help maybe calm yourself down a bit and to kind of come around to feeling a little bit more grounded and centered. And it's something that you can continue to do as you get older. I'm not going to find myself out in the backyard, when I'm 80 years old, throwing a baseball or doing. And it's not. I love baseball. That's not the conversation. But I'll be able to sit down with the guitar and deal with emotions, good and bad. Maybe I'm happy. I just want to play guitar. Maybe I'm not feeling so great today. I'm going to play guitar. It's okay. So as far as the conversation goes, I mean, it's always been remarkably important to me to have access to music and playing and having the freedom to express myself, good, bad, and ugly. It's great.
That was great. I have dedicated my whole life to providing access for people that are heavily at risk of going down the wrong path, are ending up on the streets, are in a drug addiction, or maybe violent crime, or what have you, and trying to put an instrument in their hand or something artistic, something creative, because I think the connection between creativity and mental illness is my opinion, the best coping mechanism that you're going to find. Yes, the medications can be helpful, but everything in mental health is maybe. Okay? If my eyesight goes, I go to an optometrist, they'll find the right prescription, it's fixed. That's not how mental health works. There isn't like, you definitely have this and we're going to do this treatment and it's good. It's all maybe this will work, maybe that, let's try this. A lot of misdiagnosis, a lot of people on the wrong meds, or too many meds, or not enough, or what have you. But creativity works. It works. I know it works because here I am. I'm still here. And the people I have worked, I'm not making this up. It's been thousands of individuals and groups, and I mean homeless shelters and residentials and schools, but also millionaires, everything. And they're all dealing with something. So if two millionaire kings and John Lennon and Paul McCartney feel the need to go back and talk about their childhood and maybe their moms and what they think they may have lost or what is still in Liverpool, like a Citizen Kane rosebud. Is that their rosebud? Is that their ideal of what their childhood was or should have been? And now we get to enjoy it and it makes us feel better. Shit, man. That's pretty good therapy. So if that's the connection, I think it's fantastic. And look, if you want to go out and make death metal, that's great. If you want to be David Lynch and you're making those movies, that's good for people too. I love the weird stuff as long as it's real. And that is where the issue is, everyone. Skynet is officially come. We have AI literature. I've seen that where you can just, I want this kind of a story, and the computer writes it. Or, hey, here's a bunch of AI artwork. We've all seen that on like Facebook and Instagram. That's scary because that's created by a robot. It is not coming from a human experience. That robot didn't lose their mom and now they're trying to write something that maybe reconnects that, or it's the subconscious. A computer doesn't have a subconscious. A computer doesn't have a consciousness. We're using a computer right now, but the computer doesn't make me feel better. I can create things on this computer that speak to my experience and my pain or my joy or whatever, and that will keep me connected to myself and hopefully feel connected to others. So if that's the thing, then I think it's great. Now, have there been a lot of truly mentally ill people that have gotten involved in music? Yeah. A lot of that music is great and good for them for putting it out. What is his name? Daniel is it Daniel Johnson? Daniel Johnson? Hold on. I'm going to say this will be my last thing. There's a documentary that I'm going to recommend. Is it Daniel Johnston? Yeah. He recorded cassettes alone at his house, and it's just he's mentally ill and in a lot of pain, and boy does it come out, and it's weird music, but it's really good. And check that out if you want to hear some honest stuff, or you really want to get heavy. Listen to John Lennon's first two solo records, Plastic Ono Band and Imagine. There is no Paul. Matter of fact, Imagine's kind of anti-Paul. He just says what he wants to say. Paul hasn't done that as much, which is why it's interesting and fun to investigate songs like this. So you don't have to go through pain and hell to be a creative person, but you do have to live your life. You have to have experiences, and that's, it's the difference between watching a pretty young girl act on a CW show where you can tell that she's reading lines, but she doesn't have that life experience, that the grain, and then you watch, oh my God, who's just like Morgan Freeman or somebody who's older, or even, a younger actor like DiCaprio when he was younger. There's a movie called This Boy's Life that came out in the 90s, and he had something, but it was honest. So whatever you do, just try to be honest. And I think you can keep some demons at bay. Maybe. everything's a maybe,
Yeah.
but you don't get a prescription to be creative, and you don't really need money.
Well, I was gonna bring that up actually, because I'm also an audio engineer. The accessibility to hardware right now is fascinating. If you have a computer, there are built-in microphones on these computers, and I know people that are just sitting down with guitars in front of a computer using the onboard microphone to record into GarageBand. Not that a Mac computer is cheap, but you understand the conversation. You have the ability to express these flavors and emotions, and get them out if you want, and you don't have to share them if you don't want. You can have them for yourself as your own personal journal, and keep them on a hard drive somewhere. But you can certainly be expressive in a much easier way, and get your songs out, and put that energy out there to have this creative thought as a young person, as someone in 20s, 30s, whatever. If you're looking to be creative, we have the tools, and that to me is fascinating. I mean, when we were kids, it was Tascam 4-track machine, and I'm not recording on a Tascam 4-track machine and trying to get that out to the universe right away, because there's other pieces in the puzzle that need to happen to make sure that you can get that music so it's actually listenable on a format that people are. And the conversation just goes on and on and on with that. But again, right now, you can take your cell phone, record into that. People are doing these things, and it's interesting, but it's cool. Like right now, this is a very good time to have those conversations if you're looking to put your energy into your creative energy into something, and you need it. Because I know I say that all the time. I don't do this just because I like it. It's not just that I need it. This to me is lifeblood. This to me is so, still at my age, so remarkably fascinating, and still interesting and important, and something that, listen, you as well, I'm sure you know people that used to do this, and I used to, because it's happening, man. Oh, I need to do something else. I can't make it work anymore. I'm not feeling it. I don't know, man. Like I've had many of those internal conversations on my own, but I'm still doing it because I can't hit the eject button. It's too important to me to be able to have the artistic thing around me, and it's yes, yeah, kind of like the warm blanket conversation, but it's still it's my medicine. I don't take anything. I feel very thankful for that. This is my medicine: creativity, music, songwriting, all of it. It's the stuff, man.
Well, everybody, please join me in thanking David Moorhead for joining us for this talk about Penny Lane. He has music out on Spotify and everywhere, and we are working on music, and it's decent. So
I think it's better than decent. It's going to be very, very good.
It's pretty good. All right. So for those of you that are still here watching or listening, after I say goodbye, please just get rid of your stuff, close your eyes, and listen to Penny Lane, and actually let it happen. Or if not Penny Lane, just one song of whatever you choose. I recommend Penny Lane, but whatever you want, and just give yourself that moment, because if you allow yourself to be creative or truly invested in a piece of art, it's really hard to think about other things or to worry about other things. And I'm pretty sure that's meditation and a way to kind of get yourself to not freak out about COVID, Russia, China, whatever your current freak out is that we have no control over. So just love yourself a little bit and allow Paul McCartney to gently whisper in your ear about finger pies. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us for Here We Are Now, episode number 3. We'll see you next week. Thanks again to David, and we'll see you next time.